Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast about what comedy means to the people who make it. Comedy is a funny thing. It can be a release, a diversion, a weapon, or a teacher, and from it maybe we can learn about our own values. If the elderly and infirm fall down, that's tragic and we'll rush to help. But if the vain, pompous and rich fall down, that's funny. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 1,500 comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. If you like to hear what comedians have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is well known online by millions for her TikTok and Instagram appearances in sketch and character comedy, but she's best known to me for her stand-up, and this year takes her debut hour show to the Edinburgh Fringe. It's comedian Freya Mallard. Was comedy always kind of a part of your life when you were growing up? Was it something that was an influence on you from early days?
Yeah, my dad is a huge comedy nerd. He did stand up for a while. I kind of thought it was more than it was. It kind of became folklore of like, oh, dad was a huge stand-up comedian. Came to pass, found out it was more like 30 gigs. But in my family, it was more like be a clown rather than be a doctor or anything like that. I think he got accepted to go to, the clown school in France, the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a gig once, and then Eddie Izzard rocked up, so he could officially say he did support for Eddie Izzard or opened for Eddie Izzard. And so yeah, I was just big into stand up as a kid, watching, like, I think I remember one time in an art class someone was like, who's that guy, and they were trying to say Rowan Atkinson and like, what's he been in, that kind of thing, and I was like, and just started listing off his whole like Blackadder, like everything. And my art teacher was like, this girl is cultured. And because I've eventually got to like Mr. Bean, and that's when everyone knew about him. Okay. So yeah, love comedy, always have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have specific early influences on you and the comedian that you would become?
I don't know, but like obviously Live at the Apollo was huge growing up. And I actually remember like, do you remember like moments coming online as a kid, like just kind of waking up to the world a little bit, like something happened that kind of shakes you awake into consciousness a little bit? And I remember like seeing Hal Cruttenden set on Apollo and just being so blown away, or like watching Ed Burns set about Alanis Morissette and just those kind of things, just being like, whoa, oh my God, I am in the world. And now like, I know Hal quite well, and it just blows my mind.
Yeah. I remember when Ed Burn did that ironic bit it's for the life of me, and I've been trying for years to remember when I saw him. It was a tiny little pub in the West End. There must have been about 12 people in the audience and he was trying that routine out. And I wish I could remember it because it seems like decades ago now.
Didn't know what you had. Didn't know.
So what was it? Was there one specific moment like that made you decide that you were going to be a comedian?
I think I was just really lucky in that I was surrounded by a lot of stuff, like, and a lot of different stuff. So like, Whose Line Is It Anyway? And then like Mock the Week and like loads of stand-up things. And like my dad would take me to see theatre and that kind of stuff. But I wanted to be an actor. But I remember there was one moment where we did a year 6 play, like when we were leaving primary school, and everyone had to talk about like, we did a play about, you accidentally bump into everyone and everyone says what they're up to nowadays. And I'd always said, I want to be an actor. But then I kind of just like at the last minute went, I'm a comedian in the play. I'm a comedian. And my joke was that I'm this big comedian, but no one's ever heard of me, which I'm like, how did I have such a grasp on the industry so young? So I'm like, everyone goes, what do you do now, Fred? And I'm like, hello, I'm a comedian. I do. And they go, what have you been on? I'm like, have I got news for you? Mock the Week, Love the Apollo. And they're all like, no, not seen it. And do you know what? It was pretty apt. It was pretty, obviously I've not done all those things, but also I really liked it felt like I'd been so certain on, oh, I'm going to be an actor, but I knew that I would be a failed actor and that it would really be comedy. When you have those little moments where you let your true ambition shine through, you actually let yourself go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it was that, but yeah, loads and loads of small moments, I suppose, like wanting to be the straight lead in a play, but then just always getting cast as the comedic character and like realizing in the long run that that's way more fun.
Yeah.
Do
you remember the first time you did a stand-up show?
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm a real like what's it called? Career politician. in that I'd studied comedy at university, so didn't get into any drama schools. And I was quite relieved about that actually, because I was like, actually, do you know what? I didn't want to do Shakespeare for 3 years. I just want to be Julie Walters, and do the funny stuff. So I found, I say we because my mum was very much like, find a degree that you can do, and we found a degree in comedy writing and performance at Winchester, which now doesn't exist anymore, which kind of gives you an ear into how that was. And in the second year, we had to do a module in stand up. I went there I thought, okay, I'll be a writer. I'll be Sharon Horgan. And then in the second year, we had to do stand up. And I was like, okay, well, I really thought, I was like, it's more of a guy's thing. I'm not Jimmy Carr. I don't write one-liners, but I'll give it a go. And I'd been a little bit exposed to like Sarah Pascoe and Josie Long. And I do remember thinking, this is like more conversational. This is really funny. I could do that. I think I could do that. So I went and did this gig called Pin Drop at the Winchester Guildhall, which was absolutely appalling, and doesn't exist anymore. There's a pattern in my career. Just everywhere I go, decimating the scene around me, leaving nothing in my wake. But yeah, so I did this one gig, and it was actually on International Women's Day, and I was 19 years old, and I got there, and the MC, who I don't remember who it was very nervous, and he was like, would you like to MC, because you're there's only 2 women on tonight, and maybe you could MC. And I was so in my head, like that mindset of being like, say yes to every opportunity, like never say no, be up for every challenge. So I was like, oh, maybe I could. And then eventually I let on that it was my first ever gig, and he went, oh no, don't MC then, don't MC. So I did that, and it was awful, and we do have it on video, and my partner like takes the piss out of me mercilessly because it was awful. But I remember being very like kind of, I don't know, my mind was in a good place with that. I went, okay, that was terrible, but it is supposed to be terrible because it's my first gig, and I was like, it's only up from here. Like, it's really good to get that one out of the way. But yeah, it was appalling. And I did gigs all around. When I started, it was in Winchester, so I did gigs in, I think it was just that one in Winchester because there was no scene. So I'd get the coach to Southampton and Portsmouth, and I even did like, a friend was doing his hour on the Isle of Wight, so I got the ferry over to the Isle of Wight to open for him. And so it was a really good scene to start out on, because there was no kind of like London centric referencey type things.
Yeah.
And people were really up for it, especially in Portsmouth, really, really kind. But also it was really scary because I had to walk into like some working men's clubs as this tiny like 19-year-old, and have the bottle to stand up on stage. It was very scary and intimidating in the beginning. But yeah, really, really cool. I'm really glad that's where I started out.
Yeah. It's fascinating that you were kind of already in it, you were at the center of it, rather than sort of being tentatively dipping your toe in here and there. Did you have those kind of expectations? Was that scene everything that you thought it would be in your mind?
I think it was just that thing of like, when you find your thing that you want to do, because I'd been like, I remember in first year of university, I got really into doing like cheerleading and like was just really enjoying that, but also was a little bit like, I was going out a lot at the student union, like all stuff you're meant to be doing at uni. But I remember in second year, again, it felt like I came online. I was like, oh no, this is what I really want to do. And I don't know why I've been caring so much about like, am I going to be social secretary on my like on this extracurricular thing I do? And actually was like, okay, this is what's really important. And then I ended up like getting a job, because where I come from, Buckinghamshire, is just outside of London. So I ended up getting a job in London, and then getting the coach back. We only had like 4 hours contact time at uni. So on a Thursday, I'd get the coach back to London, and I'd work over the weekend, do gigs in the evening, and they'd be like 5-minute bringer spots. So I'd have to bring someone with me, and like was just here, there, and everywhere. All my stuff was in 3 different places, but I loved it, and like, had more passion for it and anything than I even have like recently.
Did you have in mind a sort of the style that you would want to do? Because you mentioned like one-liners and longer storytelling, that sort of thing. Did you have something that was kind of your fit from the outset?
I think I was just like, I like what Sarah Pascoe does. I like what Josie Long does. It's conversational. I make people laugh in conversation. I can do something like that. I can, and obviously when you start, you end up really mimicking people you like. Like I remember where there were, there were whole generations of comics trying to be Stuart Lee, and there was a very long time where everyone was talking in James A. Caster's voice, and luckily I never fell victim to that. But yeah, definitely imitating comics I liked, and when you go out, like advice I give to new comics is always like, you don't need to take on the world. You don't need to like have your bit about like, I don't know, huge issues. Just write a bit about biscuits, like just do something really fun and silly. And yeah, I think it's because you want to sound important and everything when you start out, but you want to have some kind of status on stage. I definitely played around a status I found really difficult for a long time. Like tried to be low status, and then I had one gig in like a terrifying gig pub. I'm terrified of pubs. That's also the theme. Terrifying pub in Tooting, which I've been past since. And I just kind of like had a go at one of these like skinheads that was watching, and like in a really nice way was like, I think he shouted out to me or something, and it wasn't in a threatening way, but I was kind of like, don't talk to me, come on, and don't threaten me unless you're going to take me out for a cultured evening or something like that. Just kind of like biting back, but in a nice way.
Yeah.
And since then I've kind of like, okay, I can play with this different kind of status. But for a while, I remember I did New Year's Eve in Birmingham at the Glee, and I just came out and I had this feeling of everybody in the audience, especially the women, which really got me down, were looking at me like, who is this little girl that's going to try and entertain us for the evening? I don't want to hear what you've got to say. And that really like stumped me for a while. I was like, I can't keep coming out and people are so upset to hear me and don't think I've got anything to say, and really, just aren't interested. And so I kind of had to recalibrate for a while. Yeah.
Well, on that basis, then the person that you are when you're on stage, when you're performing, how much of that is you? Is that a character that you play?
I think it's always like a heightened version of like one aspect of your personality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's me on my best day, and it's me kind of liking myself enough to let go and be really free. Like I think I always have the most fun when I'm trying something new and I feel really silly and giddy about this new piece of material. And I'm almost like shocked myself at how much I'm enjoying it. And I'm just really letting myself go. And maybe the pressure's really off because it's just like a casual open mic. Like that is when I actually feel like I come live the most and the most me, or the most me I want to be on stage. Like I still get really nervous at like if there's pressure on a gig, that kind of thing. Like sometimes I worry. I mean, I don't know how it seems to the outside world, but I worry that I have this whole thing, the imposter syndrome of being like, make sure you're worth the 50 quid they're paying you. and like, do you seem like a real comic, or do you just seem like you're giving it a go, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, as someone who seems very self-assured, do you get those kinds of nerves and anxiety before performing?
It's strange that yes and no, because for a while people, and in some elements, people say, do you get nervous? And I say no. I actually, I think I've maxed out on adrenaline. And I think that means more like, just your everyday gig. I said to people, I was like, no, I had to go to Thorpe Park recently just to kind of feel something. It's like actually a bit worrying. But when the stakes are higher, then yeah. And also I have really that voice inside being, telling me, you haven't interacted with the crowd yet, or that last bit of crowd work really didn't work, or no one's interested in this bit. Like you can see that guy over there isn't interested, that kind of thing. So on days when that voice really gets to me, then I feel like I feel bad. But most of the time I'm able to override it. Yeah.
You said about when a gig is important. So what gigs are the ones that you consider important?
Well, I guess if it's new, like I've never done it before, or it's like a booker that runs a bunch of gigs, so you want to impress them on the first one, so they book you for a bunch of others. So just stuff like that. Or there's people on the lineup that you really want to impress, or like, your friends you want to. And I always find that the funnier you are in the green room, the more shit you eat on stage. It's so depressing. I've had so many gigs where I kill it in the green room. I'm like making everyone laugh so much. do say so myself. And then I come out and you just eat shit to the audience, and it's so depressing. Because you want to be like, you should have seen me back there. But it's because comedian humor is so different to audience humor.
Yeah.
Like there's too many, like the stuff that makes comics laugh is quite frankly terrifying.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get actually into that patter too much before you go out to the audience. And also it makes you cocky. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that humor among comics tends to be sort of darker or more edgy because it's not the sort of stuff that you would have let out into the world otherwise?
I think so. Also, there's just more of a shorthand. Like you're all just in the comedy mindset anyway. So you don't have to warm up into it. And it's obviously more with certain people than others. Yeah, I think actually I'd say maybe like more weirder. Like the in jokes and stuff I have with people, like just really bizarre. And almost it's like for a set, you need like a start, a middle, and an end. Whereas a comic, it's just maybe like a word or a certain turn of phrase or an act out, and it's very quick and yeah. But I love that stuff way more. But I think my end goal is always to kind of bring that and kind of make it accessible in a set.
Yeah,
that feeling. Yeah.
When you're doing those mixed bills and when you watch other comedians, do you see them the same way as you once did, or now that you are a comedian, do you watch them differently?
Oh, I guess no, I watch it with like a really analytical brain, and I'd love to go back and like watch it the same way as I used to, like as a teenager or something.
Yeah.
But and it makes you jaded, and people ask you about that, and you say, well, actually, the set's not that impressive because they don't make a joke until 15 seconds in. And it's a bit judgy, isn't it? But when you love someone and you just want to analyze everything and why it's so brilliant, then that's really nice. I appreciate it then. And it's just, you want to analyze it because you love it. But also there's comics that make you just totally forget that. And every second that they're on stage, you're just like, wow, wow, wow. And you don't even have time to get to it.
Yeah. What about when you yourself are being judged? So in the sense like you did Chortle and Leicester Square New Comedian, when you're in like competitions like that and people are going to express their opinion on you and you're up against peers, some people you might be friends with, but you're now actively in competition with them. How do you feel in that situation?
Well, I did the whole circuit, I did the whole shebang, all the competitions. So after a while, you kind of like just get used to it. And now I'm just so glad that I'm doing less and less of those. I can't remember how I found it. Like you get a little bit, because in the beginning, it really can make a difference to your career. So you get a little bit in your head of being like, well, I think I got 3 laughs and I think they only got 2 or whatever. And sometimes you don't know people. And I remember I did enjoy, like when I did my Chortle set, it was all comics from Southampton because they did it at Southampton Uni, and I rocked up as the only person from Winchester, and then I won, and that was nice. And it felt good to be like, to take the crown and say fuck off and then leave in a blaze of glory. That was nice. I'll fully admit to that. But yeah, after a while, I think you go through experiences where you're like, that person I really think did well that night. I think that person was great, or I think I should have gone through or whatever. And then it doesn't pan out like that, and you realize it's just so down to the discretion of the judges or whoever it is. Audience vote, I mean, that feels bizarre. But yeah, it can, I remember rigging competitions and trying to get loads of mates to show up and vote for me, and oh god, I don't miss it at all. But yeah, there'd definitely be times where you'd feel like, oh, that doesn't make sense, or like, oh, that's not who I would have picked, or whatever. So yeah, you've got to take them with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. And what about lockdown? So as an early burgeoning career grinds to an immediate halt for no one knows how long. What did you do with that time, and how did that affect you, and how did you come back from that?
I have such a bugbear with lockdown because I thought we were all just having a break. Oh, we were all just having a nice break. And I was like, oh yeah, some people are doing Zoom, but those people are freaks and it's not worth it. And they're just people that are just dying for attention and can't make it this time, I was just like enjoying myself, man. I was out in Somerset, my mum's place, and it felt like it was really remote and away from everything.
Hmm.
I was locked down with my mum and my partner at the time, and I was just trying to get through that, to be honest, just living with my mum and my partner, and like the relationship deteriorating day by day. I had my hands full. I couldn't even make banana bread. Um, but yeah, I just was like, okay, great. There's no comedy happening. I love it. This is amazing, and we're all on a level playing field because no one can go out. This is great. And then I remember TikTok came along, and like I think I made a couple TikToks, and I just enjoyed it actually. I just really, really enjoyed it because I thought this is not there's no career gain to be made from this. And now I'm like, you absolute idiot. Like you could have quit your job from COVID. If I did but this is the thing, is I really I've never had like any kind of business acumen. I'm very much like a work hard and not smarter type person. I never cotton on to anything. Like I'm always just like, no. I was like one of those like comedians that have been going for 20 plus years. It was like, no, online is silly. And it took me ages. And I was online. It made no sense. I love online. I'm always online. I'm always there. I'm always checking everything out. So yeah, COVID to me just represents like a massive missed opportunity. But when like given the opportunity to just sit and stare at a wall, I will take it. I think there was one point my mum was like, Freya, you haven't left the house in a week. And I was like, I'm happy. I'm living my best life. I'm not so much like that now. Have done a walk today. I can't quite let a week pass as easily. But yeah, so COVID, I really regret that, but I'm just trying to use that to inform how I spend my days better now. But it hurts.
Well, of course, there you've mentioned TikTok, and although I may know you as a stand-up comic on the stage, millions of people will know you from your TikTok reels, I believe they're called.
Instagram Reels, TikTok, I guess videos. Yeah.
Oh, that's too simple. It should have its own name.
I know, yeah.
So obviously things of your own, but also in collaboration with Tom and Davina Bentley and others, millions of people are liking your videos. How do you respond to that?
Again, I have the wrong attitude. I think I need a life coach, because I'd have a video do really well, and I'd go, okay, that was a fluke. That what can come of that? And I think if I'd have I know these people that I think that treat it really like a job, and they're like, okay, I've got to get a certain amount of videos out a week, that kind of thing. I think it's a big self-sabotage voice in my head that's going, come on, you need to, if you were a true artist, you'd wait until you were inspired or something like that. I have no idea. But yeah, I think I never wanted to go so clinical as to be like, yeah, I need to get this many videos out. Or it's just not the type of person I am. Like, I don't know how Excel works. You know what I mean? I'm never making up a spreadsheet for content, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I should do it now, but now there's a baby, and that's the ultimate excuse. But yeah, I think I did just about enough to have it tick along, but I really could maximize it a lot more. But yeah, it's really exciting to have people see you and people recognize like I got recognized a lot in Edinburgh last year, and that was really weird, and really nice. But yeah, it's a weird thing to have millions of people see something you've done, but it doesn't feel like a true representation. It's really nice. Sometimes I do work hard on the sketches. Oh, that's bad to say. When it's a longer sketch, I work very, very hard. But yeah, but it's quite often it's a short thing or just a little idea you've had, and I like stuff to seem rough and ready and just come together, and in the moment you film it. And I'm not very good at like giving it the respect it deserves of like filming it with good lighting and like getting costuming and stuff. I'm always like, no. If it works, it should work without any of that. I'm a very hard dictator on myself, or very hard mistress. I don't know. But yeah, so it doesn't. Obviously, I'm prouder of my stand up because I spend more time on it, and it feels like more of a representation of who I am. But it's cool. It's very cool, and I really like working with other people as well. I really like doing Binks and Hebrides with Davina. and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there particular videos that have got a surprising reaction, or or something that particularly ranks among your favorites, perhaps?
Yeah, the surprising thing is always that the ones you think are gonna just change the world get 10 views, and the ones you film with no makeup on in your room, like in app, very, very quickly, just get millions of views, and that's brilliant because I'm sure all my exes see those. And everyone I went to primary school with and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that would be the surprising thing. I'm trying
Hmm.
to think, it's been so long. I had like it's annoyingly the stuff that you want to veer away from, like stuff that's maybe more hack. Like I had videos go big that were like about the way that my mum does her makeup in a very slapdash kind of haphazard way that makes me very uncomfortable to watch. Or how my mum used to drive me to school in the morning
Hmm.
and kind of trauma dump on me, which people related to, so it's okay that I said it.
Yeah.
Um, that those went very big, but I wouldn't want to do it if I had the kind of this business brain. I would just do it to death. I'd do like mum video after mum video.
Hmm.
But again, I'm an artist. I just create when the moment strikes me, when I'm like Newton under an apple tree. Um, I don't want to do it to death too much, but it would have been a good idea.
Hmm.
But yeah, the annoyingly kind of the stuff that I wouldn't want to do loads tends to do well because people relate to mums because they have them. Whereas I want like my little niche videos that really appeal to me, and like just there's a slight turn of phrase that I think is really funny. I want that to like go out to millions, and people are going, "Come to Brazil" in the comments and stuff. But no, it's never works out quite like that.
You said about being prouder when you're on stage. Where are you more comfortable? Because obviously you've got the acting, you've got the online videos, you've got stand-up comedy. Where is your comfort zone? Where do you feel most at home?
I do feel comfortable making comedy videos. If it's anything kind of personal, like talking to camera, like actually just being myself and trying to let people, trying to promote a gig or saying like, just being me.
Hmm.
I hate that. I really find that difficult. If you're in the habit of it, it's a bit easier,
Yeah.
but doing a sketch feels good. It feels a bit like cheating because it's like it comes together quite quickly and people online it has the potential to be seen by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it just feels a bit like, yeah, it just feels like cheating, which again there's this theme popping up of I just really need to earn it, don't I? But stand up, there's the element, it's live, so it can be a finely honed piece of material, but if something can go wrong very easily.
Yeah.
And I just like all the elements that come together of people, and people do comment on, how is the writing versus how are you as a performer versus how are you um just in the moment talking to the crowd, how in the room are you, and there's all these different things that people are looking out for. And I think, not in a cruel way, but they're open to being impressed, and I do that with my peers.
Mm.
I just say, I love how in the moment you are. I love the writing is so incredible. And I think that's the thing about stand up is there's so many different ways that it can go wrong, but there's so many different ways that you can be a strong comedian. And obviously you want to have all those strings in your bow. But I think they're all quite different muscles, and so some days I feel like an incredible performer but a shit writer,
Mhm.
and some days I'm like that writing was white hot, but I'm like, oh, I kind of fudged it, or I was tired, or I wasn't in the moment enough and I phoned it in or whatever.
Mhm.
So that I like, I guess it's that never ending challenge that comics like.
Yeah. And what about the improvisational aspect? Because obviously, if you're doing a reel, I mean, sorry, a video, I don't really know how much you improvise in those scenarios or how much is scripted. But also on stage, you must be able to, like you say, be in the room. So you need to kind of react to things and respond to things there and then off the top of your head. So do you build in time for improvisation, and is that something that you're happy with? Do you hate veering off script, or do you more embrace being able to walk away from the written word and embrace what's happening in the room?
Mm. I think again, I always have more fun when there's an element of improvisation. If I veer away from script slightly and I'm not just totally sticking to script, because an audience can really tell if you're just even if you're acting it out the best way you can, like it seems like you're just making it up on the top of your head. They can tell, and they love it when you're in the room with them. Sometimes that's all they want. But it's hard. It's almost like you need to be extra confident enough to seem unprofessional or to come off script. It's so scary. Like I'm the kind of comic, I've never ever on stage had a sip of water on stage, because I just never, I don't understand how comics see a moment where they're like, do you know what? I've just made them laugh. I deserve to give them silence for at least 5 seconds. Like that has never ever occurred to me. I'm too anxious. I'm too like, I can be, they can be laughing at a punchline so hard and I'm already thinking like, get into the next one. So I think, yeah, if I am relaxed enough to let myself come away and be in the moment, then that's really where the true gold is found, and that's really when I enjoy myself. But just letting myself do that, it takes so much, and I'm better at it now, which is great, and it means I enjoy myself. So yeah, that's what I think.
Obviously, this year you're taking your debut hour to Edinburgh. And having just had your baby's debut this year, but also now you're making your stand-up debut.
That's what we call the birth, the debut.
Yeah. I don't know which of those two things is more stressful. I have no experience of either. First of all, what's the show about? Tell us all about that and what we can expect as an audience, but also, because it is your first hour, I mean, do you expect more from yourself? Do you expect more from your show? What are you hoping to achieve maybe with it?
Yeah. My show is at 4:35 at the Baby Grand, which is very fitting, and it's going to be the whole month, baby, basically. And the show is called The Bounce Back, so it's all about my baby will be. I had him in early May. God, my brain's failing me. I must say, I'm functioning on 3 hours, 46 minutes of sleep today because he is currently like 6.5 weeks old. So we're really in the trenches right now. The show is called The Bounce Back, and it is about how on earth do I give birth in May and do a show by August. And the show has kind of been written whilst I've been pregnant and heavily pregnant, which is very different. And then as a new parent, and then formed in August. So it's weirdly gone through so many iterations. People are very, what I needed to get out of the habit was people give you so much grace when you are heavily pregnant doing a preview. They are so kind to you, and it's so visually impressive to be doing stand-up like that. So I had to make sure I didn't fall into the trap of writing too many visual gags or accepting that praise people gave me. But yeah, so it's all about, it's been written in a very short space of time, but also over very different periods of my life, just even in a short space. Like, yeah, being pregnant is very different to being a new parent. And I was writing the show not knowing how I'd feel being a new parent and that kind of thing. So it's all happening right now. You're witnessing it live. So yeah, and it's about that, but it's about relationships and my relationship to my baby, but also my family. And but I'm very silly, and so it goes to different places as well. It goes to talk about a lot of stuff about science, weirdly. Shit on Darwin, shit on like young couples, loads of different places. I'm not really selling it very well because it's not written yet, it's not finished yet. And yeah, I think it came from a place of, I did my warm-up show last year. I did a 45-minute work in progress, and I really enjoyed it, but also I felt like I was in a place in life where I was witnessing, a lot of my peers doing their debuts and loving it and seeing loads of shows and being like, okay, this is going to be me next year, can't wait. But also I was very like, okay, but that's not all I want to do. Like I want to start my family as well. And it's a very weird position to be in, to kind of be thinking like, to have that inner feeling of like, I want to be a comedian, but I want to be a mother, and neither one is kind of enough. And I'm really passionate about doing both of them, but they're both not enough. It's a really strange feeling. And I do find it difficult to be in the world of stand-up and Edinburgh specifically. I find it really hard to kind of all the kind of agonizing over, oh my gosh, I'm doing my debut, and I didn't want to kind of to be doing that. I wanted to struggle more, if that makes sense. I find it a bit cringe, to be honest, to be an artist and to be kind of yeah, moaning about my art, which I would definitely have done. And I think there's a part of me that needs to be hanging out in Edinburgh and people to be asking people like, how's your debut going? And they say, oh, it's going well, but I'm really tired. Oh, but of course I'm not as tired as you. And to kind of be one of those people is like, you know, I'm doing what you're doing, but I'm doing it backwards in heels. But you know, but the version is I'm doing it with a baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I think, but the thing is, because I've been doing it stand up since I was 19, I'm a little bit, it sounds awful to say because obviously comics go for so long, but I'm a little bit jaded in the sense of like, you know, you do the gigs, you go around the country, and it's a weird thing to be. Last year I would have been 25, and you know, spending all my Saturday nights for years, you know, in like a weird working men's club in Southampton, or like going here and there to places I never would go. And yeah, I just wanted something more, really.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So how has your Edinburgh experience been as a whole? And again, this is things that you've alluded to, like the social aspect and the industry aspect. And of course, now you've got the added childcare aspect and family, and Tom will be there with you, I assume.
Yeah, so my partner Tom is also a comedian, and he'll be doing a show at 9 o'clock. So, and in my head I'm like, okay, my show is at 4:30 and his is at 9. We've nailed it. This is going to be great. In practice, that could be the worst thing. I could have said, oh no, we should have done our shows at exactly the same time, gotten it over with. To be honest, I'm just excited to have an hour to myself, even if it's on stage in front of loads of people. I'm going to take it as an opportunity to like cut my toenails and do things with 2 hands that I don't get to do normally. But I've had a really good experience of Edinburgh. I think I've done split bills, and then I did my work in progress last year. And I was very mindful before of like, these are the years to have fun, just hang out with people, like have experiences, and you know, work on your shows, but also enjoy the horrificness of being an absolute nobody, spending no money because you can't spend any money, on the free fringe, and just, you know, getting stories and enjoying it, and then, you know, save it all up for your debut year when it's very stressful and very expensive. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be savoring it. It's like when people say to you about your newborn that's not sleeping at all, like, just enjoy this time because it goes so quickly, and you're like, where is it going quickly? So there's a bit of overlap there, which is nice. But I'm excited to do it, and I'm really glad that I'm doing it now with such, you know, I was like, I'm 25 years old, do I have something to say? And now I really feel like I have something to say.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a point to it, because I was very bad at flyering before. When I would do shows, I'd be like, come and see my show if you've got absolutely nothing better to do. I don't know if you need to make some calls. I don't know if you need to catch up on your correspondence. Come and see my show. I'll pay you. Like, I find it very hard to ask people for money and to tell them that it's definitely worth it to see me. But this year I feel much more confident about saying, definitely worth it to see me. Spend an hour in my company. I'm allowing myself to do that.
Yeah. Of course, this is an opportunity to flex that sort of long form storytelling comedy that is, you know, miles away from the 5-10 minute club sets. Is that the aspect that you've looked forward to the most, to be able to actually build a situation, build a narrative?
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of, a lot of my bits, sometimes they're thematically very similar, and so it's really nice to be able to put them all together and to kind of show them as a body of work. But also, to pop weirder bits in there to kind of break it up, which I have some really weird bits about, not about, but I have some really weird bits that don't really make sense in a lot of sets, or are really weird to just pop in there with no context. And also it's a chance to explain stuff that you that's maybe wouldn't go down so well on a mixed bill. Like, got a bit at the moment about trying to explain how I think if women didn't have the babies, then the men would just keep us in cages, and that really takes some unpacking. That kind of high concept stuff. Make a room full of people comfortable with that idea.
Yeah. Is there anybody or any other acts or other shows that you are looking forward to building into your Edinburgh this year? Is there things that excite you about what's upcoming?
Yeah. Well, I'm always excited to see. I always make sure I see Colin Holt. He's so funny and amazing.
Mhm.
It's hard I've just been so out of it. I've not been on Instagram very much, guys, so I actually barely know who's going up. Like I always see Delightful Sausage, but I don't think they're doing a show this year. But I think Amy Gledhill is, and just all seeing all my friends, all their debuts. I'm really excited to see that. I might have to like wait till later in the month when it's a bit less painful to be like, oh my god, their debut's hilarious. Is my debut as good as their debut? Yeah, all this rubbish, random stuff that I don't want to have in my head, but I can't help it.
Mm.
I think John Tothill's going up again. I loved his show last year. Yeah, but I suppose I'll be doing a sensible year and not seeing very much at all. Because last year I saw loads, but this year I think I'm gonna have to keep my head down and just be in my flat and be looking after my damn baby.
Are there people or are there shows that you've seen like those that you've mentioned that continue to inspire you and make you think more about your own material?
Yeah, last year I went around and I had a note in my notes app. I took something away from every show. I wrote down kind of like the lesson that I took from it. So I think someone's was like surprise them in the beginning. That's an option. Someone was just like, you can be silly the entire time, or someone was like, structure is king or whatever.
Mm.
And I had this great notes app full of like things I took away from my friends' shows and from people I admire shows.
Yeah. Do you think there's a single lesson that you've learned since you started that really informs what you do going forward?
I think the biggest kind of hurdle I overcame was playing about with where I feel I stand status wise on stage, because I think it's really hard for women to place themselves on stage. We talk about it all the time, me and my kind of peers, down to the makeup you wear, the clothes you wear, how you start. It really, audiences, and I do find, aren't out to love women on stage.
Mm.
And even just from the second you come out, even if it's not negative, they are thinking, oh, this is a woman one. And that's not inherently negative, but it is an observation that you have to kind of contend with. And it's not a bad thing, but you do just have to be very, very aware of it. And I spent a long time wearing like very, very baggy clothes and trying to talk shit on myself. And actually now I find it's much easier to kind of be above the room and kind of chat shit to people, but with a very nice voice and with a smile on my face. And actually I can get away with saying a lot more than another person might.
Mm.
So yeah, playing around with status was a huge thing to overcome. And then biggest lesson is just the relaxing element, I think. It's like, and it takes so long, and I'm only in that place when I'm gigging all the time. So
Yeah.
right now I'm doing my first gig back after giving birth next week. So I'm gonna be rusty as hell. So I apologize to the audience that see me next Friday. I won't say where I'll be. But yeah, it takes a lot of work, and it's only then when I can trust myself. And yeah, so relaxing, and also the best stuff comes when I'm acting out and being silly, and yeah, allowing myself to kind of go off book and that kind of thing.
Mm. So what so far then do you think have been your best and worst experiences in comedy?
Oh man, it's hard to say. I mean, there's been so many times specifically where in the moment you're like, okay, this is one I'm going to write down. Almost I need to remember how horrible this was, of like, going to the loo after the gig and hearing someone be like, oh God, she was very good, was she? But luckily I think I've blocked those out. It tends to be, I suppose, like it's more of an overall feeling of like, yeah, feeling like I didn't max out COVID, or just generally like, oh, I haven't found my voice 100%, or
Mm.
it took me too long to realize that kind of thing. I think those are actually the harder pills to swallow than just, I mean, now I've gotten to the place now, which I quite enjoy, is you can just happily, a new material gig, something's not going well, I can actually just sit back and be like, oh, it didn't work. Oh, okay, that's fine by me. And that's, do you know what? If you're comfortable with that as a comic, the audience are comfortable with it, which is a really nice place to be. And you go, do you know what, guys, that didn't work, and I'm okay with it. And they go, oh, great, okay, well, we're okay with that too. If you've just, been on stage long enough, then you trust yourself, and that's nice.
Yeah.
So that would, I guess, those would be the lows, just kind of, just the overall feelings, yeah. But the highs, God, it tends to be like at just new material nights where you really enjoy yourself, and it's like a great lineup when all your friends are there and all the stars align. You want to assume it's like the gig where you get the most money and it's like the most high status and it's one you've been waiting for ages to do. But I suppose it's harder to enjoy those ones. It's nice to do them, but I'm too stressed. I think that's what I'm really realizing from this. I'm a very stressed person.
Yeah.
I think I'm quite chilled, but clearly not.
I like what you were saying there about like doing a work in progress and trying something out and it not working and everyone's kind of chill with it. And I think that's one of the reasons I go and see so many works in progress is because everything's unfinished and because it's a comedy savvy audience who kind of knows not everything's going to work. Everyone is more relaxed and you can just sort of say, well, that one's out, or I'm keeping that one, because everyone is just on board. You're workshopping and you're kind of doing it together. You're part of the process.
Yeah, when you learn that's a thing as a viewer, you're like, oh, I want to see that, because it is more fun and there's more jeopardy. Like they're two so different things. A fully polished finished show is great, but also it's really nice to see a different thing.
Yeah. And when the comedian on stage recognizes that something doesn't work and the audience knows it doesn't work, how you react to that, what you do with that information could be one of the funniest jokes potentially. And it will never be used because that situation doesn't then arise later on.
Exactly. It's addictive though, as a performer. It's a nice easy out to kind of make a joke about why something didn't work. I'm getting to the point now in previews where I'm like, okay, I've got to be strict on myself. I can't just get away with making jokes about how unfinished the show is, because at some point that's not going to fly. But it is fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. So given that we've seen you acting on things like stand-up sketch show and on your TikTok, we've seen you on stage, all of these many things, is there anything that you yet haven't done that you're looking forward to the opportunity?
Ooh, that's a really good question. What am I excited to do? I'm excited to do, I'm excited for my son to see me do stand up one day.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. I'm excited for kind of the story of it all, for him to know that, both his parents are stand-ups, and to kind of, to show him our work. I think I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
I want to do more writing. I want to, all the standard things people say I want to do. I want to do more of everything, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I'm just really, really excited to keep performing and to, like I've said, this kind of whole way through of like to keep allowing myself to be the performer I want to be. That's when I'm most proud of myself, even if it's at like a very low stakes gig or, just trying new material. If I feel like I've really had fun or really let myself go or, leaned into act outs more and been more physical, and people, my partner will say to me like, that's when you're funniest. That's like when I allow myself to do that, that's when I'm very, very proud of myself. And I'm excited to get to a place where I'm like that all the time and really, really confident. And to be honest, it's been so long since I've done stand-up now. I've been and it's only been 7 weeks, but that to me is mad. I think I was in that place, but it's just so hard to remember. So I'm just excited to get back to it, to be honest. I'm excited to leave the house. That's a rarity for me at the moment. It feels electric just to go to my local cafe. So it's hard for me to judge contextually at the moment. But yeah, I'm just excited to get back to it.
So how can we find out about you and where we can come and see you perform?
So even though I'm not on there very much at the moment, or I'm not viewing the stuff is going up on my Instagram, which is at Freya Mallard. And I'm at Freya Mallard Comedy on the TikTok, which I feel like I've slagged off, but I do really love, and I'm there quite a lot. I have got time to go on there when I'm breastfeeding deep in the dead of night. I'm on TikTok. And I'll be posting got lots of previews coming up in July. So anyone interested in watching a show come together, definitely come and watch those. And to be honest, my previews are going to be more mental than anybody else's, because I might have to bring my baby some days, and I might have to breastfeed on stage some days. So if you like Jeopardy, then these are the previews for you, because I don't even know what's going to happen. The only person that knows what's going to happen is a little baby, and he's a bit mad. So that's not who you want in charge of a comedy show. But sadly, I'm at the point. That's where I'm at.
And so my last question then, Freya, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Oh man. Well, I would say comedy to me has been, it's been like I think Mae Martin said it's the avenge the death of your father moment. It's when you feel like you have a purpose in life, and you can be like, what's it, Hugo Montoya in Princess Bride, like, you killed my father. I'm going to kill you. I've got that quote wrong. That's not the quote you want to get wrong. But wait, let me get it. My name is Hugo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. That's it.
Okay. For pedantry's sake, it's Inigo, not Huego.
Inigo.
Yeah.
There we go. Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry. I don't want to mansplain in the 11th hour.
No, that's fine. Inigo. I always thought it was Hugo. But yeah, it's like the avenge the death of your father moment, where like you're on course to something, and that's what it's meant to me. Is like, okay, great. I've felt very, very lucky to have found the thing I want to do at 19, and then just be able to like openly pursue it. But yeah, to me, it just means connecting with people and finding the funny thing about you. Like the biggest piece of advice I give to new comics is, rather than thinking about performing to an audience, think of the person that makes you feel very funny. And that can be very surprising people. Like my mum makes me feel very funny, or there was a person when I worked in retail, there was one person that would laugh at everything I said. And so now I always just imagine I'm performing to them, or when I'm writing, I write to them, because that's how you should feel. And you should feel positive and like the room is with you, and like that person is waiting. And yeah, I just feel like comedy it's a vehicle to find that version of yourself, that funniest version of yourself. And it's a really weird thing about how you are as a person and how you want to be seen on stage. And it's almost, for a while, I think, people always ask, like, is the person the same as they are on stage as off stage? And I think it's really nice to totally move past that and be like, no, and what a beautiful thing it is that they found this version that they can be, because you wouldn't want to be like that all the time. I mean, there are some people that are mad and are like that all the time. But yeah, I think it's a brilliant thing to create this almost like caricature and get to hop into that different person.
Yeah. Freya, thank you so much. It's been delightful talking to you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. This stuff nowadays is a welcome break. There's no one screaming in my ear. It's brilliant.